What's going on, guys? We're back, baby. Hey, we are in a very pivotal time in this war right now. This is an exciting time. There has been a massive shift of power, almost a paradigm shift to, I don't want to be too dramatic, but this is definitely the biggest shift. This is the most, how would I say, I guess in my opinion, the most dramatic change of power since I've seen since the beginning of the full scale invasion between Ukraine and Russia. Um, I think what's happened, or one of the many things that's happening, is the Ukrainians have figured out that critical mass of drones that need to fly over Russia to overwhelm their air defense. The Ukrainians figured out that number. Now anything above that is targeted strikes, right? Or hits on target, ideally. So we're seeing a lot more successful Ukrainian strikes on really important Russian logistics facilities, military facilities, training bases, stuff like that. So we got a Preston Stewart video. Preston's on it all the time, just on top of things. So we're gonna jump in and watch this. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys something pretty incredible is going on with our fundraiser for John and Patrick's drone team.
Hello everyone from Different Breed. My name is John from Sweden. This is Patrick from Norway. We've been in Ukraine for 4 years now. We are transitioning into drones and we're taking drone classes right now, and we need your help. We are launching a fundraiser for controllers, ground station cables, antennas, and goggles. We're very thankful for all you guys' help up until this point. It means a lot to us. And a lot of the work we've been doing down here wouldn't be possible without you guys' help. So we truly appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. And Slava Ukraini! Героям слава!
A lot of you guys know we've been trying to raise some funds for John and Patrick to get up and moving with their drone team. They need like 3,700 to get combat active on the front line. They're gonna be doing drone work, and also when they start getting some, send us some of their footage. And we are almost there. I think we're like 700 to $1,000 off of that final target, which is, I mean, 2 years ago, dude, I would have never even imagined that our community would be able to put something like this together. And so I'm just really happy. I'm excited to get these guys up and active. If you are willing and able, you want your donated money to go to Ukraine, but know where it's going and go to a good cause, consider donating to these guys, so you actually see where your money's going. Okay, let's jump into this. This is more successful strikes in Russia and occupied Ukraine.
Missing. So it looks like Russian air defense has gone missing. A lot of them have been destroyed, but overall, we're seeing huge gaps emerge across the front, allowing Ukraine to carry out major strikes against high-value targets on a daily basis. This is all part of Ukraine's plan, but to be blunt, it is not sustainable for the Russian military. Now, that's not to say they're on the verge of collapse, but they have no chance at winning this war anytime soon, so long as they cannot defend themselves against Ukrainian drones. Just yesterday, we had a Russian Special Forces training center hit by a Ukrainian drone with more than 60 Russian soldiers confirmed killed by Russian sources. Russia said that's what happened.
And that was Akhmat. Akhmat are these dirty, mercenary war criminals that fight on behalf of Russia. Just we hear some of the most heinous stories we hear come from the front line they're about Akhmat, and that's the 60 guys that were smoked yesterday.
Today, it was an FSB command post hitting Crimea. So we're going to start out with that strike and then talk about how this plays into Ukraine's master plan that they're rolling out here in 2026. That is well on its way at this point. Now, the Ukrainian SBU released this footage, and they said, quote, "There are good results from the soldiers of the SBU's Special Operations Center Alpha. The headquarters of the Russian FSB officers were hit, and an anti-aircraft system Pantsir S-1 was destroyed in our temporarily occupied territory. Thanks to this operation alone, the Russians suffered losses of about 100 occupiers killed and wounded. The Russians should understand that they need to end this war of theirs. Ukrainian sanctions of medium and long range will continue to work." Now, in terms of the casualty numbers, first, look at this. explosions there. That is significant
It's
for this
insane,
range.
dude.
We'll get into that in a second. We do not have verification of the casualty count. So that is a Ukrainian report saying 100 killed and wounded. I would say
Dude, I mean, I've been saying this in probably the last few videos we watched like this. I don't know if the Ukrainians got their hands on some secret alien technology that's been released from the US or what's going on, but the drone tech is insane now. That any kind of fixed wing drone flying that far with that can pack enough of a punch to create that explosion, there's nothing like that on in the market in the military sphere. There's nothing like that right now. So they got their hands on some stuff, dude. I don't know what they're working on, who they're working with, but it's working.
it's pretty safe to assume that anyone in that facility, it looks like an old resort or hotel, anyone in there was at the very least wounded, if not killed. But yesterday, we actually had Russian accounts verifying 60 plus killed in the strike. Today, we've got a couple Russian accounts verifying that the strike happened. Nobody getting into exact casualty numbers. Officer on the front, a Russian mill blogger, complained about this, and this is, again, part of the overall Ukrainian plan. He says the reason that this strike was so successful is because all of the best air defense systems are concentrated around the residence of senior officials in the Kremlin. There's a limited number of air defense systems in Russia, anywhere in the world, and Russia, the one that matters here. They're leaving things exposed. And we're seeing that day in and day out. There are multiple high-value strikes happening every single day. That is not normal. It has not been a regular occurrence in this war.
Nah, dude.
It is now. Now, turning over to Deep State Map to give you an idea of where this strike took place, because this is important. I think the video actually did a pretty good job showing this, but it was just off the coast right in here. So if we pull up our ruler, we go that the general vicinity. To give you an idea, it was over to the Zaporizhia direction, 200 kilometers. All right. Now,
Yeah.
the types of drones used in this strike are not launched from the contact line. They're pushed back a little ways. So 200 in this case is a pretty safe assumption on the low end. That means that everything in the occupied territories is within range, not just of Ukrainian drones, but big warheads on these drones. That's the major difference in this SBU footage that just came out. Let's go back and play that again. So when you look at drones or any long-range munitions, there's always a trade-off that has to be made. Generally speaking, larger payload, more weight, bigger warhead, generally means shorter range. And if you want something to go further, one way to get it to go further is you reduce payload, reduce the size of the warhead. When you can find ways to increase range and increase payload, that can be a tipping point. And what we're seeing in Ukraine right now is innovation is bridging that gap. So for a 200-kilometer strike, not just to navigate through Russian air defense, but deliver massive warheads on that building is saying something. And that shows that everywhere across the occupied territories is at risk of not just, small drones with small payloads maybe disrupting a convoy, but genuinely destroying whatever it hits.
I want to clarify something. When I say that the Ukrainians must be working with somebody to be, getting this advanced tech, I don't want to take anything away from the Ukrainians. They have, I think, gone above and beyond anybody's expectations on what was capable for a country their size, with a military their size, and the technology that they had. Nobody expected this for Ukraine to not only hold the second largest superpower for the last 4.5 years, but now is assaulting and taking ground back. So I don't want to take anything away. My point in saying they got their hands on some alien tech is that there was this very sharp point of shift where the Russians would kind of gain superiority in drone tech than the Ukrainians would. The Russians would, the Ukrainians would. And then I would say in about the last 2 years or so, the Ukrainians always stayed pretty ahead of Russia as far as drone tech goes. But then it was like this. They're like this, and then it was like, now there's this massive gap with drones doing I have never seen before, and I've been watching, and I've experienced, and I've ran from a lot of these drones. I've never seen drones do this.
Now, again, this is all part of the plan that Ukraine has rolled out that we're seeing implemented in real time. First, they go after air defense assets of the Russian Federation. We've seen it's been played out for a while, definitely ramped up in recent months. When those air defense systems are gone or attrited to a degree, that opens up gaps for Ukrainian drones, larger drones with bigger payloads, to go after more targets in that middle range. We're talking 30 to about 200 kilometers. SBU headquarters being one of those, a lot of logistics facilities as well. What that does is it shuts off Russia's ability to wage the war on their terms. They cannot keep their troops supplied at the front. They can't reinforce elements as often as they would like. And they're having to focus their air defense and their protective stance further and further and further and further back from the front. There was a time in this war where the only soldiers in Russia that were at risk of really getting hit by Ukraine were at the front or within 10 or 15 kilometers of the front. No longer. Now, within 200 plus kilometers, everybody is a target. And the first phase of that, of course, knocking out Russian air defense assets, we see playing out every single day. That phase is going to be continuous until Russia has zero of these systems left, which isn't reasonable, not to be expected.
I want to be clear about something too. I remember 2 years ago, kind of like when this channel started, more or less. I remember when these types of systems or the multi-launch rocket systems would be hit by the Ukrainians. Number one, it was a rare instance, and number two, it was a big deal because that's a multi-$100 drone taking out a multi-million-dollar piece of war tech. We're doing that every day now. So just let that sink in, man. Like, I would say maybe once every 2 months before. Back 2 years ago, once every month, once every 2 months, we'd hit one of these big pieces of one of these big vehicles or whatever assets every day.
But Ukraine's doing their best. Just earlier today, so this is just footage from the last 24 hours. We've got a couple different updates here. The first from the Magyar birds. They said, from air defense to logistical chaos, the birds flew and they pecked at. We tell and show that they hit a radar from the S-300 air defense system and a refueling truck in Donetsk, a Tor air defense system, and a tractor in Zaporizhia. Then the unmanned systems forces said that they destroyed 20 Russian air defense systems between May 1st and 21st. One a day. That is, again, talk about something that is not sustainable. Russia cannot build these that fast. I don't know what the production capacity is. I would say maybe, you know what, I was going to take a shot in the dark and say maybe a couple a month. I have no idea. They're just very complex systems, and Russia does not have a lot of them. They certainly do not have enough to be losing one every single day. The SBS talked about a number of targets that they took out just in the last 24 hours or so. S-300 air defense system and the fuel truck in Donetsk. We've got a BM-27 Oregon multiple launch rocket system in Donetsk. Maintenance workshop for UAVs from the 150th Separate Motorized Rifle Brigade in Donetsk. Command post of a UAV unit in Donetsk. An mobile enemy gun system in Donetsk. Enemy logistics in Zaporizhia and Donetsk. And then a port crane in Zaporizhia. And what we're seeing is slowly but surely Russian recognition that this middle strike campaign is becoming a real issue. They are noticing that there are drones flying in areas where there were not drones flying just a couple weeks, certainly a couple months ago. A couple comments here talking to this just today. We got Russian mill blogger Maxim Kalishnikov saying, and I'm going to play some footage actually. What you're seeing here is the Russian viewpoint of some key logistic roads riding along the Sea of Azov in the southern portion of occupied Ukraine. Kalishnikov says, quote, "The land route to Crimea increasingly resembles the roads in Afghanistan in the 1980s. The remains of destroyed vehicles are scattered along the sides of the road. The enemy is disrupting the supply with drones." A mill blogger informant said, quote, "Footage of the consequences of the operation of kamikaze drones Hornet on the logistics of the Russian armed forces on highways in the Mariupol area. The distance from the front is over 100 kilometers. He says, in fact, there's a systematic effort to cut off the land logistics corridor to Crimea. Pull a map back up to show you what they're talking about there. Again, this southern route connecting Crimea back to mainland Russia. And what we've seen in recent days is Mariupol targeted right here, and then this key road moving east-west from Mariupol to Berdansk, and then over through Melitopol, and then down into Crimea. So this kind of main east-west route, there's not really one further north that's that size. That is the road you're seeing with all those burning vehicles on it. So this main logistical route to keep their forces supplied in Crimea, this land bridge that is so important to Russia, has burning vehicles on the side of the road day in and day out. And some of these Russian mill bloggers are getting fed up with this, saying, what are we even doing here? Are we even paying attention? Romanov said, quote, "It's an obvious fact that the number and frequency of such attacks will soon increase. However, this is not obvious to the Ministry of Defense and the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Russia. Along the route, there are no small sky monitoring posts, so no counter drone teams. It says there's nobody there warning civilian traffic. There's no mobile observation groups. There's no protective nets that are being installed. There's essentially it is completely open. There's nobody there. It's an area, when you get into certain areas closer to the front, you start to see these things. You start to see nets. You start to see mobile drone teams. You start to see a lot of electronic warfare jammers. You start to see all of that pop up, especially in Ukraine, because it's needed to keep the traffic moving. This is an area inside of the occupied territories that has not needed that until now. Again, we're talking about the constant stretching of Russian air defense. Somebody's going to have to move something down to try to protect these areas along the coastline. When they do that, it's only opening up something else. Maybe it opens up the skies over a oil refinery. Maybe it's over the Kremlin. Maybe it's over an airfield. There is a finite number of air defense assets and resources that Russia has. So if they move them in this location, it opens up somewhere else. Now, I don't want to give the impression, we've seen a lot of very important high-value strikes carried out by Ukraine just in the last few days, and it's important to highlight those, but I don't want to give the impression that that's the only thing happening in this war. Of course it's not. Russia is continuing their long-range strikes every single day, all day. In fact, we just got some footage earlier today showing that they went after the SBU administration building in Lutsk, amongst other targets. And this footage is constant. But what I want to highlight here is what we are seeing from the Russian side is very similar to what they've been doing for years at this point. And there doesn't appear to be a major strategy behind what they're doing compared with Ukraine, where we can very clearly see this 1-2-3 plan playing out. Air defense goes, then middle strike. That reduces Russia's ability to continue the fight at the front. On the Russian side, we are seeing from their deep strikes pretty much the same that we've seen for a while. They're going after military storage facilities. They're going after trains and rail depots. They're going after defense production all across Ukraine.
Hospitals, schools, nurseries.
That's kind of the norm. And then when you get closer to the front and look at more of the tactical fight, Russia seems heavily focused, and we've had some Russian reports on this recently. They're heavily focused, especially the Rubicon unit, on going after Ukrainian drones and equipment, not as much after Ukrainian manpower. It's kind of whack-a-mole, right? If Russia is expending their top-tier drone units and their drones to try to take out Ukrainian drones, it's just, that's a nonstop effort, right? Have you seen the production facilities in Ukraine? These things are coming out left, right, and center. So what we're seeing from the Russian side is a continuation of deep strikes that hasn't stopped, hasn't reduced. In fact, in some cases, it's increased. But they're largely doing the same thing and going after the same targets they have for a few years and somehow expecting different results. Maybe. This feels like part of the major Russian war effort at baseline is like, if you just keep pushing, at some point, Ukraine will just fall over and the war will be over. That's what their deep strike campaign looks like. One more production facility, one more apartment building, one more headquarters facility. Like maybe next week it'll make a difference. It hasn't yet, but the next one could be the one, right? What we're seeing on the Ukrainian side is a deliberate shift in strategy, this middle strike campaign that is playing out, making it very difficult, noticeably difficult for Russia, so much so that it's getting the attention of quite a few pro-Russian accounts saying this is something that we have to figure out. We've got to solve this issue, and we've got to solve it fast. All right, hey, quick fundraiser update to wrap everything up here. Yesterday showed you.
We're going to watch the fundraiser update, but I was thinking about this metaphor that I've kind of been using in my head about the Ukraine-Russia war, right? Let me know if you guys have seen the movie 300 in the comments, okay? There's a point where they're about to fight the Spartans and the Persians, and the Spartans get set up. They get the shield wall in the at the mouth of like the Hell's Gate or whatever, that canyon opening, and they set up a shield wall, and the Persians like are like an ocean of enemies, and they're coming forward, and finally the Persians end up smashing up against the shield wall of the Spartans, and Leonidas is yelling like "Hold, hold!" and they're not fighting; they're just defending, and they're just holding them, right, getting pushed back a little bit, holding them, push back, and finally the Persians get exhausted, they get tired, they get burnt out, they get demoralized. And at that second is when the Spartans blast them. Leonidas makes the call, blast them off the shield, and then they just go in for the kill, right? And then they're like boom, 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 and then they make their advance. I feel like this is the metaphor I have in my head about Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine's been on the back foot for the last, 4 years, just like holding that shield wall, holding that shield strong, boom, boom, losing some ground, boom, 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 and now finally, 2026, Zelensky being Leonidas in this was like push, and then bam, oof. Now they're going on the offensive, dude. So I don't know. For me, it's really exciting. It's exciting because I'm very invested in this. I live here. I fought here. I've lost friends here who I consider to be family. I've made friends here who I consider to be family. So this is, if Ukraine goes, I go, theoretically, right? So I'm pretty much as invested in this as someone can be. So very cool. Let's listen to the fundraiser update. They've always got cool stuff going on.
You guys a video. We delivered 62 medium-range strike drones to the 26th Field Artillery. Incredible. Got some more of those pictures today. That is a huge handoff, and they're already in use over in Donetsk. Zigizpaw, great organization. We'll definitely get something lined up with them before too long here. In the meantime, we've got a years-long campaign that we're running with Car for Ukraine. So this is something we're providing 35 vehicles. We're outfitting, all of us together, this is incredible, outfitting an entire Ukrainian drone battalion with 35 new vehicles. That's so cool. And we're well on our way. So we're over halfway now with 247,000 euros raised of a 430,000 euro goal. You guys are rocking it. So I'll play a quick video here that was sent over from the 104th Territorial Defense Brigade Seraphim Battalion. So these are the guys that we've teamed up with, and just showing you how important these trucks are. So they use these pickup trucks from Car for Ukraine that you all are providing to get troops to and from the front line, to evacuate the wounded, to resupply those in forward fighting position, to take drones forward and munitions forward, all of that. It is critical because in a lot of areas, especially where the Seraphims are fighting, they have to get there and back. And if they don't have vehicles, they have to move on foot. And then they're just a much easier target for Russian drone operators for a much longer period of time. These trucks are genuinely saving lives and keeping these guys in the fight. So for those interested and able to contribute, the link to do so will be in the pinned comment in the description below. But that's all we got for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next.
So cool, dude. I think I told you guys, when Preston was here in Ukraine, I was with him when a couple of these vehicles were delivered. And so I got to see them, man, and check them out. And they are the real deal. So this Car for Ukraine company takes these vehicles that were typically donated, from my understanding, or maybe they purchased them. I don't know. But they take these vehicles and they basically gut them, repair everything on the inside, and then up armor the actual vehicle itself. So there's these really thick steel doors on them, like to where it's heavy to open the door. So this looks like just your pickup truck that we would see like back in 2022 with the International Legion jumping in and out of the back of pickup trucks, like I even did, right? And more or less it's similar, but these are up armored. So the idea is there's less one-way trips for these vehicles. Maybe they'll survive a hit or two, right? That's the idea of it. Anyways, very cool fundraiser they're doing. And all those drones, 46 fixed wings, that is a huge, that community is making a massive difference, dude. Awesome. Shout out to these guys. Anyways, you guys, this was a sick video. Please like, share, subscribe. If you are willing and able, also help out John and Patrick, get their drone team going. Let's get these guys up and moving, baby. All right. I love you. We'll see you in the next video.